I'll demonstrate a couple moves with the rope. Then I'll demonstrate with that.
Cool. All right. So we are live here at the Kung Fu and Karate Expo 16, and I'm here with Derrick Flitcroft, returning to the show. Derrick, the last time that you were here, you were with the Armored Combat League, I believe it was. Now you are the Castle Tournament CEO.
Yes.
And that is a company that you created. And he is in full gear here, by the way. So
solid steel, so don't feel a thing.
Yeah, so for all the audience members that remember the last time that we were here, Derrick beat the piss out of me basically with a helmet on, and I didn't feel it. It was fantastic. Derrick, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Good. It's good to see you again. So tell me about what you're doing now. Castle Tournament is your new thing?
So it is a company that I started to take. There are multiple leagues around the country, everything from the ones that can actually create the USA teams to go and compete overseas to homegrown ones. And I said, all right, the leagues are enough, and they're not putting this out there. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this sport, I'm trying to put it into private events, public events, anything that we can to get it out into the public and show that, hey, this is a thing that you can come and watch, and it's awesome.
It is awesome, and I caught a few of the things. I didn't catch anything live before COVID hit, but I saw a lot of it online.
We're doing more now, and actually, so I'll link you my link to my Facebook page and everything, which we have a live feed actually from just last week. We did a tournament out in Pennsylvania with 4 teams present, and it was, force-on-force melees, basically being able to take your opponents and bring them down to the ground, make them submit, and you win by, you have to keep at least one member of your team left standing.
Okay, so let's set this up again for everybody who doesn't know what this is. You are in full armor.
Yes.
You're wielding medieval weapons, and these are real swords that are made of steel. You're using maces and battle axes and whatever else. And you're counting on the armor to protect you as it would have back in the medieval times. So you're not pulling punches, you're not holding your swings back, you are actually full force beating the crap out of your opponent.
Yes, and we love it. So it's a great explanation. It's literally based on the tournaments and the rules that were set in the 15th century. We have manuscripts that were written back then by kings and other knights to depict how these tournaments were run and how they were fought. And so we take those, and we're still 90% similar to those, guidelines from back then. There's a few things we added for safety, but overall, it's pretty much the same. Dull, blunted weapons, just like they were back in the day, because when you were fighting in a tournament, you were fighting other people within your country. This was training to be able to go to the battlefield and make sure that you could stay on your feet. Because 9 times out of 10, if you're on your feet as a knight, you're not really vulnerable. It's once you get taken down to the ground that someone's able to get a knife to your groin or your neck or underneath your armpits. And if you could stay on your feet, you could stay away from that. You could stay alive. There were stories of knights being outnumbered 20-1 against guys that weren't in armor. They were able to kill a few and get away because they were never taken down to the ground.
Right. So this is interesting to me because when I think about grappling and MMA in the current day, takedowns and bringing the fight to the ground is normal. But you're trying to do this with full armor.
Yes.
Helmets. Scabbards.
So my helmet's about 16, 17 pounds.
Yeah,
it's
heavy.
heavy.
How does this work then? What are you doing to take somebody down? And then once you have them on the ground with all this armor on, then what?
So in the melee format, once they're down, their body becomes part of the battlefield. They have to lay there until that round is over.
Okay.
So I do it plenty of times where I take one guy down and the next guy tries to come and get me, and it's like, oh no, and I turn myself a little bit, and then I push him over his dead teammate, or down teammate. They're not dead.
Right,
Don't worry, we're not killing anybody. But it's an effective strategy because it's supposed to also teach, field awareness and being able to know I have bodies behind me, whether it's friend or foe, it doesn't matter. They can't move, and if I trip over them, well, I'm wearing about 80 pounds of steel. So a kid's, the lightest one I've ever seen is about 50 pounds. That's for like dueling, and no one's going to go in against an axe because the axe is a good 6.5 pounds of steel. So you get hit with one of those, you feel it. The armor protects you, but you feel it.
Yeah. So, and we are at the Kung Fu and Karate Expo 16. How does this translate to the martial arts universe?
So martial arts, like any fighting, comes down to base and stance and that original, just basic as a child, you learn a little bit of grappling, right? And being able to actually like control your opponent. Now the same idea applies. It's just now that you're wearing armor, and so is your opponent. So now instead of I'm going to do this big, deep, huge motion, sometimes it's a lot more just if I lock my arms in this position to prevent them from moving, I use my core to bend down because now they're off balance because your center of gravity when you're in armor is a good 6 to 8 inches higher than it is normally. So when you lean forward without any armor on, it's like you can lean forward pretty far and you're fine. In armor, when you do that, you're falling on your own. Yeah. So you have to be able to keep a good base and stance and everything, and trying to fight that in an opponent, try to get them off their base and adjust that a little bit can force them to now be off balance a lot sooner than you would normally, and then we take advantage of that. We use that, and your throws come in from hip throws, inside and outside trips. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff. I can literally grab the back of your head, and if I run backwards while I'm pulling down with my core instead of just using my arm muscles, because let's be honest here, I mean, I might be a strong guy, but I already have 80 pounds on me. They have 80 pounds on them, and they could be a bigger guy than me. Right? So that much weight, I can't just use my arms. I can't like pull and push people around with just my arms. You've got to use your legs and your core, like every martial art. I don't know one where it's not you're not using your core. You're just going out there and it's like I'm just gonna throw a jab and I'm gonna win, right?
Exactly, yeah, that power comes from that torque.
Of course, that twist. Same thing with the axe shots, right? If I just kind of swing an axe with my arms, it's not gonna do anything. But if I get a good solid twist in when I throw that, I can dent steel.
Okay, now twisting with no armor on is one thing. You got 80 pounds of armor on.
It takes training. I can swing an axe all I want. I grew up farming and felling trees and chopping wood all my life, and I know how to swing an axe. But in armor, you do have to retrain how you use weapons because it's not the armor so much that restricts you, it's actually the gambits and the padding stuff that's on the inside. Imagine a really thick sweater, and the whole idea is this is what actually displaces the energy once you get hit in the armor. So the armor stops the blade, but it doesn't stop the energy. So the energy gets dispersed in this, but this is the most constricting thing. So like I can like twist my arm backwards and do all sorts of crazy stuff with it. I can squat down in this. The armor really doesn't restrict you. It's the gambits in itself, and then the weight because you're off balance. My center of gravity normally being around where your belly button is, or in that area, is closer to where your diaphragm is, like at the bottom of your sternum. So when you lean forward, as soon as that point goes past your knees, you're falling forward.
Right. These fights, these melees, about how long are you fighting?
So I've won them in like 7 seconds.
Okay.
And then the max usually is 5 minutes. At 5 minutes, it gets called, and whoever has the most fighters still standing wins that round. If it's the same number, it's a draw. Same thing with at the end of the round. If you have 2 fighters that are still up and they go down together, it's a draw. No one wins that round.
Okay, so 7 seconds in the armor, moving around, swinging, whatever, is one thing. 5 minutes in that armor?
Completely different.
That's got to be a whole different world, right?
So imagine, because when we wear all this stuff, because again, this gambeson stuff is thick. Mine's about 1 centimeter thick of cotton and wool. And basically, whenever we're fighting, add 30, whatever you feel standing next to the fighter, add 30 degrees, and that's like our baseline.
Wow.
So if you're outside and it's like, oh, it's 90 degrees, it's kind of hot, I'll drink a little bit of water. We're at about 120 in this thing, and that's without if there's sunlight cooking the armor. Because guess what? Steel absorbs that heat even worse.
So what kind of training then has to go into that? Because you're not just training the movements, you've got to train the ability to withstand the weight and the heat and just be conditioned enough to keep going.
So a huge part of the way that we train has to do with muscle conditioning, right? You look at, say, like a sprinter versus a marathon runner. They play the same sport, right? That's running. But it's 2 completely different ways of training those muscles. A sprinter's going to go really fast, but he's not going to be able to go 3-4 miles, right? Yep. Long distance runner can't sprint very well, but he can go super long. So there's a happy medium. There's that idea that the strongest guys in the world are also barrel-chested. They're not these thin guys. So it's that kind of in-between. We don't have a lot of guys with 6-packs because you have to have the energy to be able to do a 2-hour-long event and fight 10 times, and each of those 10 times could be 3 to 5 minutes. Right. And so you have to have that, stored up energy to be able to do that, but you also have to be able to have that strength to be able able to carry this arm around and do that, but you have to be able to do it over a long period of time. So we'll do a lot of body weight stuff and then stuff with weight and then weapons training once we're tired, right? To just try to really just force into that muscle memory of like, you're tired, you still got to be able to do this. And it's a lot of that conditioning over a long period of time when you're training. So usually our practices are 2 hours long to be able to do that sort of stuff. And you take little breaks in the middle and everything, but you're basically expecting to do 2 hours as a minimum workout because you can't get ready for this unless you have that conditioning.
Now, you did talk about barrel-chested guys, but you do have women.
Absolutely.
So, and how are they coping with the kind of demands on the body that requires?
So what's great is because a lot of them are smaller, their kits are not nearly as heavy. Plus, we also have duels and melees that can be just women. Okay. And so it is women on women, and the women are allowed to fight co-ed and fight with the men.
Sure.
But if they want to, they can fight at only women fights, which is awesome. But it also means that we have enough women that we are doing women-only fights. And we have two here actually from the South Jersey Pine Barrens, Tegan and JoJo, who are here today. You'll see pictures of them, and I'm sure, because we're going to be posting the videos, the demo we're doing later, and the demo that we've already had today. I don't know if you saw, we were doing a little sword and shield duel, and that one's always fun. It's fast. You get to hear the weapons hit. Now, meanwhile, they're the light weapons. It's an arming sword. They're really light. So this long sword is also a light dueling weapon, but those swords were even lighter than this, right? And everyone's like, oh my God, that looks like it's going to hurt. It's like, if you're not wearing armor, it absolutely will. Like, some of these weapons are heavy enough, they'll kill you with one hit to the head. Yeah. So the proper armor is really important. So a lot of this stuff has to be made properly, and we can't just go buy stuff on eBay.
Right.
Please don't do that, because you'll waste your time and money. You will.
Do you teach that as part of this whole thing? Do you teach people to forge and do that?
So instead of the forging, blacksmithing in America is very difficult. Because, kind of wait for that.
Yeah. Would you like to demonstrate it this time?
So blacksmithing and everything is a hobby in America. There's not enough money in it to make it a full-time job because, this material is from Ukraine. So I was able to buy this. They made it and everything, right? And it's 1.1 millimeters of hardened steel and ship it to me, and it was just over $1,000. And it takes 3 weeks or more to make this. So if you have an American, it takes 3 weeks to make something. Wow. 3 weeks to make something, and you only got $1,000 at the end of it. That's not profit. That's just what you got at the end. So the steel and the time and everything that goes into it, it's not enough money in America. So at the moment, most Americans are only doing it as a hobby. They do it as a side gig. Yeah. But all of us have to be able to, or at least your captain. I know I fixed a lot of stuff for a lot of people. You've got to be able to rivet. You've got to be able to fix certain things, leather working, straps, be able to reinstall buckles and things like that. And you got to go find this stuff, buy it, and you got to be able to, do that. Sewing for the gambeson and stuff like that, for the arming points and stuff like that. So, or repairing it when it starts ripping apart, because this stuff takes abuse. It really does.
What kind of people are attracted to armored combat?
How there's like good crazy and bad crazy? You need both.
Okay.
You got to be a little bit of a glutton for punishment, and you got to be physical. This is a physical sport, even if you're not really fighting that hard. You're wearing this stuff in general. You've got to be able to carry it around, and you've got to be able to breathe in this stuff. It's tough. A lot of people wear it for the first time. They do half a round, and they're already dead on the side, going, I can't breathe. And someone throw up in the armor, and then you're like, no, and you got to clean it. It's tough, but a lot of people throw up their first time in armor.
I don't doubt it, because I would think if I put myself in those shoes and don that armor for the first time, my initial instinct would be just to swing and swing and swing until they submit. But that's probably a recipe for disaster.
It's a good way to tire yourself out really fast. If you did that, if it was a duel, you're taking shots and that's how you win a duel. But if they're not fast enough where I can't block them, or they're not controlled enough, and you're just swinging as hard as you can, you're tiring yourself out. And we try to train to be like, look, there's efficient ways to do things. From the grappling to the sword swinging, finding the efficient way to do things is how you're going to be able to go longer in a fight and then win towards the end. Because you can win in the beginning, but if you all gassed out on your team, it's useless.
That's awesome. All right, tell everybody where we can find out more information and how to stay in touch.
Absolutely. So mine is Castle Tournaments. So Castle Tournaments, it's just that simple on Facebook. On Instagram, it's Castle_Tournaments. Same thing. Real simple. And I'll send you the link for sure. That way you can also post it on here and everything. But follow us for more stuff. Like I said, I have a live video from last weekend where we just did a tournament. That was fun. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of downtime. The manager of the actual location had some stuff come up, so we had like a break in the middle. Don't worry, I put the timestamp at the top of the video so you guys can skip around. I got you.
And we'll post that video on our pages as well, and we will be broadcasting the demo later today right here so that everybody can take a look at that. Derrick, thank you so much. Best of luck with Castle Tournaments. I hope to catch one of your events live, and maybe I can take a turn in some armor at some point.
That's usually for like a practice something. I'd love to be able to do something like that for you. I mean, like I said, South Jersey, we got New York City, we got people all over the place. Even if you hit me up, if I don't know where you are or who you are, doesn't matter. I can find someone close to you. I had someone a couple weeks ago from Australia hit me up to ask, how do I get in the sport? I'm like, you know what? I got contacts. Let me hit up some guys in Australia. Let me find who's close to you. And I did. And guess what? He's now going to practices. And I was like, I'll probably never meet the guy. But you know what? I found him a way into the sport.
Well, I live down here now by Atlantic City. So
well, where there's people